Rock, paper, scissors.
For what?
For f***ing champion of the world.
Seriously? Seriously?
I win after not. That was insane. We are in sync. All right, people. Welcome to the only geriatric podcast in the known universe, the Age of Gamers. I am your host, Wide-Eyed. This is your other host,
Pfarcus!
And what's the topic today?
Today we're going to talk about the next generation, or the current generation, I suppose, of consoles. The PS5 and the Xbox Series X. We each had a few days to enjoy the pew-pew and to kind of get a sense of the consoles and get a sense of how they work and what's the dealio.
It's true. So early impressions, first impressions. Not really a review. I think it's a little too early for that.
Yeah.
But definitely first impressions. So with that, drop us a like, sit back, enjoy the show. Boom! So, Farky, my old friend, what did we like? What did we like about this so far? What good experiences have you had on the Xbox Series X? Series X.
The package is pretty.
Yeah, it was a pretty good package. But beyond that, because you already told us that, you're gonna tell us the other good shit now.
Well, one of the things I was really actually blown away with, I imagine it's the same thing with the PS5, and it's a little thing, but it actually changes the experience quite a bit, is there's actually no such thing as load times anymore, at all. I had some time with games that had some pretty brutal load times. I remember Gears of War having, legitimately, minute-long load times, and...
Oh, God. So many load times.
I played through Gears of War 4, and I'm playing through Gears of War 5 now, and, besides the initial actually starting up the game, which is a 5-second load at the most, you never really see any load times whatsoever. And it's kind of a weird experience because you don't even realize that you're plowing through the game, bypassing everything that should be loading. The only thing is, I feel and we talked about this with ray tracing a little bit, about when you were saying, this is a conversation we had off screen, how you were saying that they kind of shut themselves in the foot a little bit because and this is not necessarily a negative, this is just kind of the way things are, that they've gotten so well at pretending that I feel this system is actually doing the number crunch that they were pretending to do. Yeah. So they don't have to hide load screens anymore, but
it is impressive. It is just subtly impressive. It's not as mind-bending as you think, because you said, they there's only been a few times when I've been playing where I was yeah, I can tell this is a little different. Most of the time it's just it feels the same because they did get really good at faking it.
Yeah.
They faked it till they made it.
And they made it.
And they did make it. So they definitely did a good job with that. But like you said, it's kind of a subtle thing. I did notice too, with you, what you're saying, primarily load times are non-existent, which does feel weird, especially when you play a game. I know you didn't get this so much as I did, but when you play a game that's specifically made for this gen, I haven't actually played an older game on it yet. I've just been playing the newer games like the Spider-Man and Demon Souls, but those games, there's no such thing as load times. It's just boom, you just boot the machine up in seconds, you press play on the game and load on the screen and you're in.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things I was going to ask you is with Demon Souls, so we're both a huge fan of the Soulsborne series. Praise the sun!
Yes, and check out our other videos where we tell you lots about them.
One of the things that's kind of a unique feature of the Soulsborne series, which is any of the From Software games that are kind of adventure RPG, for anyone who doesn't, the two people who haven't played those games. Basically a feature of them is that you die and then you try again, you die and then you try again. And I've been meaning to ask you how that works with Demon Souls with the no loading. Is it a fluid...
Yeah, it really is.
You die and then you just jump right back in.
Yeah, you're back in the mix. There's no downtime at all. It's crazy. It is the best part of this. And we kind of alluded to that in one of our previous videos where we talked about like the biggest impressions aren't going to be the graphical change. It's going to be like all performance and service stuff, and so far it's true. That seems to be the biggest benefits to this gen. It's not a bad thing. It's where we need it to go. I feel like there is some graphic fidelity stuff for sure, like more particle effects, and there's just more. But the graphic level hasn't changed. It's not like, suddenly we're dealing with photorealism. We're still dealing with the same relative level of graphics, and then just more of it, which is cool because that is definitely a bonus, and that's definitely like a growing point. And like, you get so much more effects and so many more like just moving particles and stuff. Like in like Demon Souls, there's a couple parts that just blew me away because before you'd always see the limitation of like there's only so many effects that it can handle.
Yeah, and
okay, we might need to pause.
We're just gonna puppy pause.
A few moments later.
Can't remember what we were talking about.
Demon Souls from loading screens.
Yeah, so there was basically no loading time whatsoever. You're just in and out of battles. It feels really smooth. It feels really good.
Another thing I like about this current gen, and this is a Series X / Series S specific.
Actually, you should let's parlay this. Let's give you some. This is your space. Tell us some Xbox. For all you Xbox Series X fans, because I do know that we have some viewers that are.
We have a few.
Either way, we have like
Yeah.
It's our moms' accounts, basically, all the different ones they make every time they forget their password. Hey, moms! Collectively. We love you. Yeah, so just tell me some Xbox specific. What, like, Xbox fans...
So this is the Microsoft space.
Microsoft, what are they going to get from it?
So one of the things that's really cool about the Series XS... X/S.
XS. Game to the XS.
Yeah, that is a really awkward thing to say. One of the cool things about the new generation of Xbox, the Series, I guess I'll just call them, is that all the old peripherals still work, with the only exception of like the Kinect stuff. But like the old controllers still work.
That's
and
cool.
Actually, Widied had an old Xbox Media remote. And we actually tested it out, and I still have the Xbox One.
A great benefactor of previous Xbox gear.
And we were like, is this thing going to
up.
sync? So we tried it, and it just turned on all
Every
my
Xbox device in your house. Every Microsoft. Even his computer. Just everything.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
So it's kind of cool that like that stuff carries over, because then you can keep your old controllers.
From what I understand, it's actually not like that on PlayStation 2, so that is really specific.
Yeah.
So, what else did you think about your game lineup? How's it? I know you've been playing a lot of different games.
Well, Game Pass is actually a pretty impressive. I had my doubts, and part of it was I feared that, and this is not necessarily a negative, but I feared that I would have like a choice paralysis with it, just because I think it's something like 100 games that it's just like, here you go, here are all the games, and I'm definitely bad for. Oh, I forgot to turn on the lights.
A few moments later.
So that's a couple points for the old Xbox. I can give you a couple for the PlayStation 2. So obviously one of the perks of having a PlayStation right now is you actually get next-gen games. So I did sit down with Spider-Man and Demon Souls, and I beat Spider-Man rather quickly. It's not a very long game. Very good game, though. And Demon Souls, which I loved. I basically cooked it that way on purpose because I wanted to take my time with Demon Souls. As you know, if you watch the channel, we talk about the Souls series a lot. Yes, praise
the sun.
And it's a pretty big deal. A lot of the reason why, it isn't going to say it's the whole reason why I went PS5, but definitely helped because I'm a giant fan of that. The other one of the other things that it's pretty obvious now because it's getting touted and talked about a lot is the controller. The controller is cool. I do tend to agree with a few people out there who said basically it's just HD Rumble, maybe a little bit on steroids, maybe with a little bit more added, obviously the trigger haptic feedback. So, and it's also come out that Nintendo, like the same company that did Nintendo's, HD Rumble on the
Switch,
the Joy-Cons.
Yeah,
they had a part in the technology, if not.
It kind of feels like similar.
Yeah, it is very similar. And it's not to say that that this has never been done before, and I do agree with a few people who said basically this technology is something that people are like exaggerating, and to some degree I agree with that, but also I do think it is praiseworthy, and I think that's what they're trying to get at. Sony definitely making it sound like they, it's the second
makes
coming.
you toast.
Yeah, it basically does everything, and but it does deserve praise because it does do an immersion thing that I think it's gonna force other companies like Microsoft. I'd be surprised if Microsoft doesn't come up with some kind of competitor idea in like the next couple of months or maybe even half a year.
Well, in fairness, like I played on the console a little bit, and it actually kind of impressed me. So there's two kind of new features. There's like the rumble specifics that are like kind of advanced. There's also the tension on the triggers. Yeah. And one of the things that kind of impressed me, there's a level that kind of comes prepackaged with PS5 on Astro's Playroom, where the little Astro robot's running into the wind, and you can actually feel the direction that the wind is coming from in the controller. Like you can tell it's coming from the front, and so there's these. And again, it's not going to make you toast and make you breakfast in the morning, but I think it's fair to give praise when something that is done well.
Yeah, and I feel like now it's like the opposite. People are starting to downplay it, and they shouldn't, because it's an important thing in the sense that I do agree with some criticism, like, oh, there's a threat that third-party companies won't take advantage of this hardware. But I think this is going to change. I honestly have a feeling this, if Nintendo does it, well, Nintendo's so unique that nobody could copy what they did anyways, right?
Yeah.
Because like the Joy-Con, Sony's, like, Microsoft's not going to make a Joy-Con equivalent. That's Nintendo's world.
Yeah.
So like they can kind of do this thing, and then people don't have to like cater to this. But the fact that Sony brought a controller, so now what's going to happen is, like for example, Call of Duty Cold War just came out, right? So the PS5 version, the triggers apparently for all the different guns have different feel. Yeah. And it's only going to take people to use this probably once or twice and decide that it's really cool. And then the pressure's going to be on to always include this. And that's what I think where we're at with this. I think like the technology is actually cool enough. Like Spider-Man, one of the things that blew me away was when I was playing Spider-Man, there's a part where, spoiler alert, not really, where he's basically on the subway, Miles Morales, and he's got his hand on the pole of the subway.
Okay, yeah.
And as it's going, you can just feel the rails, like subtly as the train's going.
Oh.
And I was like, this is actually really cool because it tricks your brain. Excuse me. It tricks your brain because your brain's like it's so subtle that it's not like old Rumble where you're just playing and like the thing's like shaking. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. It always reminds me of like when you go to the movie theaters and you're on the Rumble booth and like the person's like just driving in a car but it's like shaking you violently. That's like normal Rumble right now. But like this is so subtle it actually feels immersive. Like when the little rumble of like the little imitations that it does is so subtle and nuanced that you're like, yeah, this is actually cool. Like this is good.
One of the things, and this is a little bit off topic, but one of the things that kind of excited me when I felt how specific the controller is, that did kind of get me legitimately excited, it was thinking of that in terms of VR, like how much that adds another layer of immersion.
That's a really good point.
Because VR, like, it's kind of hard to explain, but it does a lot of things to trick your brain into thinking you're really there.
And
but
one of the few
controller is usually
the thing that brings you out of it is the controller because it feels so abnormal to be holding it. Yeah, that might actually make a difference in this case.
Yeah.
And if Sony comes out with like some sort of, even if you think about it, maybe they come up with the sticks again, but they put some of the HD Rumble technology into the sticks instead of just the batons of whatever they used before. It could be even cooler, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And actually another thing to think about, and this is kind of wild, but Nintendo, from what I remember, was actually kind of the inventor of the Rumble Pack. I think
and the HD Rumble. I mean, they did it first, and people don't know because like 1-2 Switch or whatever it wasn't that popular of a game. Although I guess it probably did sell a fair bit coming out of the gate, but I doubt anybody spent any real time with it. But a lot of the stuff that they did in it's pretty cool, and it's kind of showcases what Sony's doing.
Even before that, like they were literally the first to ever have
the Rumble.
Yeah.
And then they were like the first to upgrade the Rumble.
Yeah.
But people will forget because they're thinking Sony did it because Sony put it in an actual controller. But like Nintendo really did did beat it, but like what Sony did is, I think what they're going to end up doing is popularizing it, because where Nintendo makes things so unique and so their own, it's hard for other companies to keep up or even want to keep up with that. But like Sony doing it in a regular controller is going to make Microsoft go, okay, listen, we don't want them to have the best Call of Duty experience, which they might legitimately get from just something as simple as that, right? Like, because if you have the choice of, oh, can I play with this boring controller? Not to say that the Xbox controller, I've often said on this channel, the Xbox controller is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But it's definitely got pressure now because the bar's been raised.
Well, that's kind of my point with Nintendo. Like, I think people forget that there was a day when your controllers didn't vibrate at all, and then Nintendo, with the N64, it was an add-on.
Yeah, rumble pack,
slap it in the back, and then people are like, well, that's stupid, it's just going to shake, and then they actually felt it, and they're like, it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what happens, usually.
And then, like, other companies kind of picked up on it. I think you're right. I think there is a good chance that the same thing's going to happen here, where, you know, I don't know in terms of proprietary, or what's the word, when you, like, you're not allowed to do the same thing I did.
Well, clearly there's some line drawn there, because like if the same company that helped Nintendo figure it out and then they figured it out for PlayStation, I mean obviously they probably didn't share too much, but there is some sort of cross breeding of information and technology there that's okay. And so I think it's going to be very possible for Microsoft to get on board with this and just be like, make their version, and their version might be very similar to Sony's, but they'll have to answer it. I do feel like it's significant enough. Like I know people are trying to downplay it, but with this much hype and excitement around it, it means something.
I kind of wonder if you can copyright something like
Rumble.
Yeah.
Copyright shaking.
Yeah, I don't think you can. So I do think
the
you're
mechanisms
right.
probably maybe
like
some
actual
aspects
engineering.
Of that. They might be able to do, or they might just be able to like. See, I don't know the details of that. Like, I don't know how much Sony made and how much this other company developed, but. You know, clearly there's cross.
If you're a lawyer, comment below.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So any other more points for you? I have a few more, but I'll let you jump in here with maybe some other points of Xbox.
It's been a little hard for me with the Xbox, and this is not necessarily a negative because I know why they did it, but there's not very many games that were built from the ground up specifically only for the Xbox Series. Part of that is Microsoft actually focused on making sure that players weren't forced into this generation, and even if you did get the series, it's backwards compatible with all of the One games. So the kind of downside of that is that, you know, any game that I play is technically not a Series X game. It's a game that's been upgraded for it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to see, just because everything that I've thrown at it has been no load times. Like, I feel like the machine's barely flexing its muscles. So it'd be kind of interesting to see what happens when you throw something at it that's like really trying to push the console's limits. And we might not even see that for the next few years before the programmers kind of catch up to.
Well, you'll see some of it. I feel like the drastic stuff, yeah, because it's kind of like the tail end of like this last gen is still interesting to me, right? Because it's not really changed that much, right, in terms of games. But yeah, I suppose there's a bit of a limitation on things for you. I mean, the things that it seems like that you really liked about it was like some of the more obvious things, right? That you would like from an Xbox, like Game Pass, and you know, obviously the power, but you didn't have a lot of new games to kind of like. So there's kind of that. But we'll. Actually, there's probably one thing that you're not thinking about, because there's definitely one thing on my list, and that really blew me away, and I didn't really know about it out of the gate, was the PS Remote Play. That was a feature that I get lost on me a little bit, because I think Sony kind of stealth dropped it a while ago, that you could like remote play your PS4 to your phone, but then they didn't put controller support, and I didn't really have interest in using my phone as a controller, even though it's cool that they have that. But basically the way it works is that you can sync your phone to your PlayStation 4 or your PlayStation 5, so you can literally play it remotely. And you can play your PS5 from your PS4 and backwards. So like anywhere, the remote play is just wherever system you're closest to. You can play whatever you want when you want to, and even if you don't, you can use your phone. So I thought that was really slick, because to me that's, like I was telling, like we've said before, like the Switch won a lot of the last gen for us, because the convenience of being able to game wherever you want.
I call it poop gaming.
Yeah, and it's definitely like, I think Sony and Microsoft has its versions, as we found out too. They're definitely competing in that realm a little bit now, where they didn't before. Like, I don't think they had a leg, but they have a leg now. Because although it's not quite as good as the Nintendo in the sense that, you know, you have the hardware with you, can literally go into the woods and play it. Where this, you have to have a Wi-Fi connection, but in a lot of ways it does compete because, I mean, it's like you said, it's a poop machine, so it's in your house, right? You want the convenience of moving around your house. That's where you game most of the time anyways, and the convenience factor is now has direct competition, which I think that's awesome. Sony did, and Microsoft, you both did a really good job there for the adult gamer, because most of the time when I praised Nintendo, it was just for those small conveniences.
Yeah, and I kind of had the opposite experience. I've only kind of dabbled a little bit with it. I've never actually played any games because there's a weird. I actually find I'm a little jealous of the non-controller support, because what happened with the PS5 is, since they didn't have the controller support right away, is they actually have like a little touchscreen control pad, so you don't need any peripherals to attach to your phone to play on the PS5. Whereas Xbox does have a remote play that kind of operates the same, but it only works with a controller. And I find it a little awkward to be like, okay, well, I have the phone and I have the controller. How does this work? Kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, and it is on my wish list, there is a controller you can get. It's a third party. I think Razer makes them, where it actually extends and you can put the phone in the middle and then it snaps together, kind of like the Switch.
That's actually a bonus to the Xbox, because you can only use Sony equipment with their apps. So you can't get the special phone. So that's a special, like, Xbox did that, kind of cool. Yeah. Definitely a perk for that.
Point Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is like a big win for both consoles this gen. Now you can compete with Nintendo in some realms. In a lot of ways, it's super huge. Also, we touched about the insane load times, the graphic fidelity. That's pretty much honestly it for like I know there's what other things, services, like you alluded to it. There's another thing with PlayStation, and it actually has just come out in the news directly that Sony in a day or so going to release a direct competition to Game Pass.
Them's fighting words.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty huge. I don't know what it is, but I mean, they surprised me already out of the gate. So if you bought a PlayStation 5, this totally went under the radar for me. Like, I did not see this, didn't perceive it at all when I was into this hype thing. But they basically stealth dropped like 30 games on PS Plus and said, listen, you bought your PlayStation 5, here's 30 games that just came with it right out of the gate. And I think that was kind of them. Yeah, pretty much. Money. Show me the money. Anyways, they basically, I think they did that kind of like to compete with Game Pass right out of the gate. So people were like, oh, if I buy my system, I have 30 games now. It's a similar idea, and that are already associated to your $60, monthly subscription, or not monthly, yearly subscription fee. And I was like, wow, that's cool, because there was some cool games on there like Days Gone and stuff, and Persona 5 and a lot of titles actually, surprisingly, a lot of their greatest hits, if not all of them. So like, it was an impressive amount of games. So not only do you get to buy your new flashy Spider-Man and Demon's Souls, you just get like some of the better games that came out last gen too. So kudos to Sony there for surprising me and bringing that to the game system. Yeah, to the fold. Definitely good for the PS fans.
Yeah, I was a little skeptical about Game Pass at first, and then because I always thought it would be a choice paralysis, like you're just staring at a screen, all of the games, and then just not really playing any of them.
Well, you would surprise me because you said basically, I didn't know this, but it takes place of the yearly subscription.
Yeah, so what happened was, and I was a little concerned about it just because I did it kind of willy-nilly and didn't think about it that much. It was just like, you get Game Pass for $1, and I'm like, yes. But I already had a live subscription, so a couple of days after I did, it might have been even a week after I did that, I started to think, am I paying twice? And I went and checked, and like Microsoft, if you order Game Pass, it automatically it takes Live and converts it to Game Pass. So you're not paying twice. Game Pass does encapsulate all of the services that Live normally does. So if you buy Game Pass, you don't need Live. It'll automatically switch it over. You don't even have to do anything. You don't have to cancel Live. It just converts it.
That's cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
That's definitely cool.
Especially for absent-minded mofos like this mofo.
All right. Ba. Now for the depressing part.
So what didn't we like?
Yeah, what are the things we didn't like? I'll start with this one. Look at my little list of things. So, for the PS5, the size was a thing I didn't like. It was giant.
It's approximately this big.
Yeah, and the potential to overheat was a little concerning out of the gate.
You said you actually managed to overheat it once too.
I did, but I didn't. In fairness, I didn't put it in the smartest of places, and it sort of just. I could feel the heat when I was putting my hand on the side. I was like, whoa. I was like, this is a little sketchy. And I wonder if too some of that isn't like, because I've heard a lot of these issues that are popping up, like people are having with the system shutting down and stuff like that. Almost entire. I'm not saying this is the true people. So like, I'm just saying, as soon as I took my machine and put it up top and gave it lots of air to breathe, I haven't had a single issue with it since.
That was me knocking on wood, brother.
Yeah, that's true. And so I've really noticed that, since then, no issues. It did crash on me, like I said, when I was playing Miles Morales. And I really think it was an overheating issue because it reminded me of one that happened with the PS4 one time. But after that, works since. So that's kind of the size is kind of like, Sony, you're pressing your limits there. I mean, I appreciate it. I like, don't get me wrong, I like a lot of stuff about what they did with the ease of accessibility to the system itself. You can take the two sides off, you can upgrade it. It all seems pretty easy to do. It's just that size, man. It's so freaking huge. It's nuts.
It's a big boy.
I know there's some odd errors too around the rest mode. I've basically avoided putting into rest mode because of that, because I just don't want to take the chance, but apparently there's been a few errors floating about. I haven't personally experienced them, but I've been avoiding it.
So what is it supposed to do? It just get stuck on it? Or?
Yeah, it basically rebuilds your database. It somehow crashes. So there's that. The small SSD size is also kind of a piss.
So it's a big boy with a little hard drive.
Yeah, that 650 gigs is gonna get gone. Like I looked at Call of Duty, Cold War, and I was like, oh yeah, this looks cool. Haptic triggers and 190 gigs of the game. I was like, really? As much as I want to try it, I don't know if I want to put 190 gigs bits. I don't want to use that much, so I don't know. I don't have to think about that one. And honestly, on top of that, I'm super happy. I'm not this. It's not meant to be a depressing thing. I am super happy with the system. These things are just things that annoy me. But the one that annoys me most, Sony, I'm staring you directly in the eyes on this one. There's no excuse. Is the UI feelings. Now the UI overall is nice. I love it. I like the changes. But you failed me hard in one direction and not offered me any folders. I don't get it. It blows my mind how you can have the perfect thing for the older system and move into the new system and just not put the perfect thing. Folders, organizing games, that's the way. That is the way. That's what made you better than the Nintendo's UI. That's what made you... Xbox UI is pretty cool.
We have folders.
Well, you have a weird grouping thing.
Yeah, pins or whatever, yeah.
Let us do that, Sony. I don't know what made you not want to do that, but turn back, run backwards, make this happen, because that's really obnoxious. I love compartmentalizing my games, and I realize you haven't given me a lot of space on the system to do that, but eventually you will, and I'll want that. You gotta give it back.
I'm kind of curious, do they release how much the expansion drives are going to be?
No, well, see, it's different for us because it's...
Oh, you can plug in any M2s.
Yeah, it's not proprietary necessarily, so we're just waiting basically for Sony to make it work when you put a drive in there, but also tell us what ones work with it really well. Because I'm sure you could probably plug a lot of things in there and it could go beep, boop, brrr, error.
Boom!
Yeah, so we're just waiting for that for now. Yeah. So what did you hate about this Xbox? Other side than everything, because it sucks. Flame console war!
I'm just fighting words. Now, there actually hasn't been a lot of downsides. One of the downsides, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, is just a lack of exclusives. Like, there's no game on there that's built for the Xbox Series X/S. I'll just call it this Xbox Series X from this point forward.
Forever.
So there's no game that, like, really... And I'm a little jealous because there's even a little demo on the PS5 called Astro's Playroom, and I don't know how much of a game it is, but it's basically...
Actually surprisingly robust for what it is.
But
I mean, it's
actually...
relatively short, but it's more than you'd expect.
Well, the thing I like about the game on the PS5 is that it actually is like, this basically the entire game is made to showcase the new features of the PS5.
Yeah, and dig into the past a little bit, which I thought was interesting when you go into like the PS1. And
there's like a little
history
PS1
almost.
level kind of thing.
Yeah, interesting.
There's nothing really equivalent on the Xbox that's like, this is the new features of your console. In fact, a lot of the features for the Xbox Series X, I had to like Google to know that they were even there. Like, I didn't even know there was remote play on the Xbox. You had mentioned that they were probably going to do it.
I thought it should be there. I'm like, surely it's got to be there. Dug into it, and sure enough, it was.
Yeah, like, and one of the few things, and this is definitely a negative, one of the few things that the console actually did tout as doing, like the marketing campaign did kind of sell this on me. Shame on you, Microsoft. This was bad PR. You tricked me.
This is a negative, people. Because you will be tricked.
Yeah.
We were tricked.
So it's important to note, if you're thinking of getting the Xbox Series X, that when they say it's backwards compatible with all of the Xboxes, right up to the original Xbox One, I was thinking, like, what happened there? I don't know. There's something on my It's like a little notification or something on one of the cameras.
Bluebird.
Squirrel! So yeah, one of the things Microsoft really sold was, you could plop in any Xbox game.
Every game. Back before there were even Xboxes.
Nope.
It's not every game.
So right when I got the console,
we did the stupid thing, didn't check anything, and ran to a store and bought some games.
Yeah, Widied was like, why don't we try just going to the pawn shop and buying some old Xbox One discs and Xbox 360 discs. So I went in.
Pfarcus wasn't an Xbox guy. He never had all those systems.
Yeah, like, I never had the original Xbox. I had the Xbox 360 for like a week before I was too broke as a student and had to sell it. And then I had the Xbox One later on, But, so we went to the pawn shop, and I went in, and this is the motion I did. I marched up to the counter, and I bought 2 random games that interested me. And I'm just like, boom, give me these games. And so they gave me the games, and then I brought them in, and I put it in the console, and the console just said nope.
It's like sheer disappointment in the message. I could see it in your eyes.
So...
like utter disbelief.
So,
I mean, don't get me wrong, this guy's an eccentric mother. So he picked like the... Anyway, he picked like some games that I would have definitely questioned, like as like on. But if I would have known, like, to be fair to him, we just thought
it worked.
There was an emulator, you pop in any game, and maybe that's a little naive on our part, but
yeah. So the way their backwards compatibility works, it is in theory backwards compatible, but there's a list of games, and the list of games goes pretty much every Xbox One game that doesn't have Kinect into it, some 360 games, and then a small handful of original Xbox games. I don't know if that's because of licensing or what have you, but for whatever reason, it's not quite as backwards compatible as they let on.
Led to believe. I think a lot of the fanboys kind of made it out like it's this holy grail of gaming.
Yeah. Well, I was even pumped. I'm like, I never had the original Xbox, so I could play all the original Xbox games. No, just some.
It's basically, from what I understand, when I saw it, it was like the Xbox One offering. It wasn't much different than the games they released on Xbox One. They might have added some.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's not that much difference.
Yes.
And I'm actually wondering if your Xbox, and I never tested this, if your Xbox One can actually play the same games.
I'm pretty sure you're right. I think the list is based on whatever was compatible at the end of the Xbox One's.
So I don't think it's like special to this release at all. I think it's just Microsoft themselves were always working on backwards compatibility, kind of just as their brand.
Yeah.
And the newest benefactor is obviously the series.
Yeah.
But to be honest, they're not that much better off than the PlayStation. I mean, the PlayStation has most of their PS4 titles. Granted, they don't have any of the older titles, and that's a thing. But yeah, I guess through the PS Now service, which is arguably useless. But maybe it'll be greater now because we know that they're going to try to compete. So there's a change of coming. So that'll be interesting. Stay tuned for that. I'll be excited to find out if maybe they will actually have a worthy Game Pass equivalent, which is really going to be interesting. I don't know what that means for me because I like to have my discs, but
I kind of went the other way. I'm not afraid to download a game now. Don't get me wrong. I obviously ended up buying like 2 discs that didn't work with the Series X.
Oh, the disappointment. You should have seen it. We should have taped that for the viewers.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. It was so much sadness and a little bit of internal rage.
In fairness, I spent like $20, so don't feel too bad for me. But.
It's true, but like, I don't know, man. Like, it was like you were so excited because you're like, you knew it was like the sales pitch that you had in your mind for the game. You know, like you buy something, you're like, this is what makes it awesome. And like, you sort of know it. And then you're like, this is what makes it awesome. As he puts it in, he's like like utter defeat. Like William Gates came up and slapped you in the face himself. Win for the PlayStation boys, yeah.
Yeah, it did hurt, I won't lie. And since it was the first thing I tried, it was not a good first impression.
Yeah, you were pretty sour right at the gate. I mean, it's almost like you didn't have this giant machine of awesome processing power just because it couldn't run like fucking 1992's best game. Probably not even the best game. Like you're too eccentric for that.
Well, it was Quake 4 and the suffering ties that bind.
See, the one thing I'd be worried about Quake 4 is like their servers and stuff being present.
I imagine there's no
online play, but they should. You'd still think, like, anyways. Yeah, that is a disappointment. Even I was disappointed, not just from watching. I mean, I was kind of laughing.
Laugh at my pain.
No, it was a little sad because we were both fooled. We were like, what the heck? Because we were like, I wanted to see some upgraded visuals on this, and lo and behold, it's really just specific things like Dead Space, all of them.
Which you do get the
cool.
Dead Space games. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Twinkle, twinkle.
All right, so that's pretty much what I didn't like. It's not like, and like I said, it's really nitpicky stuff. The things I don't like, they are annoying, but like honestly, I am in love with this generation so far.
So would you recommend somebody buy?
Is that the next question we're going to talk about? I guess it is, folks. So yeah, what should people upgrade right now? I guess it's the question of the hour. It's what the folks at home want to know, and my honest answer is, it depends. It really depends. Like, honestly, overwhelmingly, I want to say for like 80% of you, no, don't even bother. Like,
I hate to say it, but I'm the same.
Because especially Xbox, no offense to you Xboxonians, but like everything that's coming out is coming on PC or Xbox One. So you can just use your old stuff. And I don't think you're going to get that much of a gear to go shell out the money until something really big happens, or maybe even a discount. I would say don't wait for a discount. I would just wait for the stock to return to normal, and you have a normal amount of money. You're not really missing out on a lot, from what I can tell.
Well, I'm kind of in the same camp, and there's 2 main reasons. I will say this: if I kick the table and shake the whole freaking place. I will say this: there's 2 reasons why I'm hesitant to recommend upgrading. One is there is a huge stock inavailability. Is that a word? Unavailability. There ain't no stock. And the downside of that, and it's become quite ridiculous. I was reading an article earlier in the week that was talking about how scalpers...
Oh, they're making a fortune off of PlayStation for double the price.
And like, there was one case where
$2,000.
I've heard of somebody that sold a PS5 for like $20,000.
Well, that person...
I mean...
is the best businessman.
Yeah. Don't do that. It's not worth that much. It's not worth killing yourself.
Some company needs to bring him on as your sales team, because that's an insane markup.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't encourage the scalpers, because really the upgrades are very subtle. Like we've talked about. You're not going to feel the same way you did when, we went from the Super Nintendo to the N64. It's not that kind of jump.
The only exception I'll make is maybe PlayStation fans. You do have a little bit of incentive in terms of in terms of Demon Souls, really, if you're like a diehard Souls fan, I could see the need to be there. Like for me, I think I would have got it regardless because I am a diehard Souls fan. I love those games, and so I don't think I could have waited for it. I never played Demon Souls. That's the other part of it, which makes me different than a lot of people like you who already did, and you always had a lukewarm kind of reception to that. So for a lot of Sony people, I would say probably is still, just wait. But like, the DualSense is cool, and I could make an argument for the fact that, that is a decent enough upgrade that's interesting in itself. But in all seriousness, you can play these games on your PS4, on your Xbox One, and you're still going to be fine for right now. I don't think, unless you are really a diehard Souls fan, that you couldn't wait a couple weeks. I'm not talking like, ignore the generation. That's silly. These systems are awesome. You are definitely gonna, if as a gamer, you want to get on board, but just don't stress out about it until like you're capable. Because, in all honesty, there's not a whole lot right now. Now we know that's going to change. December is shaping up to be. They're going to have some surprises. January, early next year is going to be like, it's going to ramp up fast. You're going to start seeing some stuff.
There might be some more, like one of the
Cyberpunk
2076 3.5, whatever it is.
The actual year it comes out.
Yeah. But I kind of hate to say it, but I kind of have to agree even a little further with when it comes to the Xbox Series X, because there is no real killer app for the Xbox. There's no like you have Demon Souls, you have Miles Morales.
No, even Miles Morales, you can.
Moranis.
I just want to say Rick Moranis. That's.
I love you, Big Moranis. I call him Mick Moranis.
You're just messing it. Names is not your specialty. No. What were you saying? That whole Rick Moranis thing lost me. Like, I don't even know. You derailed everything. Miles Morales is released on PlayStation 4 too. It's only Sony exclusive. You can still play it on your old PS4. So even that's not a good enough reason. It does play beautifully on the PS5. Don't get me wrong. Awesome. Definitely worth. I'm not arguing. As a person that I would have bought the system to play Souls regardless. To have another game that sort of takes advantage of the features is just a bonus to me. I do like the Spider-Man series. I was a big fan of the first one too. These games are very, very good. Probably some of my favorite superhero games, actually. And that's high praise because, the Batman Arkham series is really, really good too. But I think these ones overtake it slightly. Anyways, that's definitely a rant. But I do think...
Yeah, I think the most important thing for us is that nobody feels really like they have to, sell their car to get their kid one of these consoles.
Or their kid.
Just sell the kid. You don't even really need a reason. Just sell it.
I mean, if it's not getting you an Xbox or a PlayStation, what good is the kid?
Just kidding.
Just kidding.
We do not condone selling your kid.
It's not a big deal, honestly. It seems like more than it is. I think the hype is huge because, there's some cool things definitely going on. They're worthwhile upgrades. Like the next gen is different. It's changed. It's better. The speeds are amazing. All that stuff is amazing, but it's not worth, stressing out about right now. Like you said, no killer apps. Unless you're a Demon Souls fan.
I do feel like it's going to take a while for both of these consoles to kind of get their stride. I feel like in fairness, like in 2021 we have Halo Infinite, we have actually it's the only game that comes to mind. So
the Xbox.
No, I mean for both consoles I can't even think of.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff coming out supposedly.
I mean, I'm sure there's other games coming out.
There's a ton. Like I know Sony's already announced the next God of War next year.
I didn't know that.
The next Horizon Zero Dawn. Some big things coming out of Sony next year. So, and I think Cyberpunk's coming out in December, supposedly.
Supposed to, yes.
Supposedly. We'll just leave it at that right now because it supposedly came out 2 months ago. But
well, they did announce that they delayed it a little bit. I'm not sure why. Because they hate us, I guess.
Yeah. So I have a lot of people excited about that game. That'll be a good time to upgrade because I feel like that game's good. It's cross generation. It's both systems. So you know, at that point, if you're, you know, big, that Studio Red, same people that did Witcher.
CD Projekt
Red. If you're a big fan of their stuff, then definitely worth upgrading.
See, I feel
that
a little
game's
mixed.
like hours. It's gonna be hours. That
Oh, yeah.
that game is gonna be a time sink. You're gonna get your money's worth.
Yeah. I have a little mixed feelings because I was not a huge fan of The Witcher's gameplay. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Like, I give them the utmost amount of respect as a successful video game developer. In my opinion, certainly isn't going to tank their stocks. But I just could not get a feel for the gameplay in Witcher. But in fairness, this game looks not comparable to Witcher in terms of gameplay whatsoever. Like, it's more of
it's
a,
definitely Witcher went this way, action, you know, sort of a fantasy, and then they're going like sci-fi shooter. I
Yeah,
guess
so-
it's almost like an FPS simulator within an RPG.
kind of reminds me a little bit of like Fallout 3 kind of thing.
Yeah, it's and like I guess I was watching a few different videos and reading articles about it, and a lot of people that have previewed it already basically alluded to the fact that they don't want people to think that this is like a first-person shooter or some other element that exists within the game. It is primarily an RPG. It takes 6 hours to get through the prologue. It's an RPG. Yeah, you're going to be spending time with this game, and you know the fact that even if it's the only game that comes out in December and you have for Christmas, you're probably going to want it to be that way because if you're a fan of them and this style, it's going to take you time to sit with. You're going to want to sit with this game.
And in fairness, the Xbox, I don't know if the PS5 has this feature, but the Xbox has a feature where if you buy... That was a weird thing, Mike.
If you buy death.
If I got death, that's I had a bit of a smoke.
Resuscitation!
If you buy the game for the Xbox One, you actually do get the Xbox Series X/S automatically once you get that console. Basically, once you buy the game. Microsoft's made a big push that you don't have to buy any game more than once.
Thanks, Willie. I heard Sony had some issues with that actually out of the gate with Cold War. There are people that, because I guess there's like generational or versional differences, so they had like people that had PS5 bought a PS4 version, so they didn't need the fancy trigger movements.
So
It kind of was making people upset, but apparently I don't know if they fixed that or not. Hopefully they did, because I agree it should be just one version that you buy, and like it gets pared down to whatever it's just or it gets paired up or down with whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but I get it what they're trying to do, because like some companies are trying to rebrand their stuff in a weird way, like so they have an old game. And I don't know if I agree with this at all in terms of like marketing strategy, but they have like an old game and they're like, I want to sell it again at full price, so I'll make a PS5 version, and it's just the game.
If they come out with a PS5 version of Skyrim,
I will burn a copy on principle. I'm never trying it again. Stop it, Bethesda. Stop it. End the line. Make a new one. Yes, make a new one. That's
you
fine.
have made enough money off of Skyrim, I am sure.
Off of me alone. And I never even beat the damn game, so...
Yeah.
And I don't even want to try. And maybe I'll try the other one, or the new one, and regret that in a fair amount of time, but...
Probably.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of our thoughts on the thing. Why don't you drop us a comment below, tell us what you thought about the two systems, PlayStation or Xbox Series. There's lots to talk about, lots of things to debate. But on that note, drop us a like,
Comment!
subscribe.